Hi, my name is Isabella, and a few weeks ago, I discovered something that completely shattered my reality. I thought I knew my life. I thought I knew my family. I thought I knew my husband. But one ordinary afternoon, everything changed. It all started when I was organizing some old photo albums. I wasn't looking for trouble. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. I was just flipping through pages filled with memories, my childhood, family vacations, my wedding day. And then I saw it, a single photograph, one I had never seen before. At first, I thought it was just another old picture of my father. He looked younger, standing outdoors with a casual smile on his face. But then my eyes moved to the man beside him. My hands froze. My breath caught in my throat. It was my husband. But this wasn't possible. The date written on the back in my father's handwriting was from 2008, 8 years before I even met my husband. I felt a chill run down my spine. My father and my husband, they had known each other all along. But why had neither of them ever told me? Something was wrong. I could feel it. I stared at the photo, my fingers gripping the edges tightly. My mind raced with questions. How could this be possible? My father and my husband had never mentioned knowing each other before I introduced them. In fact, I clearly remembered the day they met at our engagement dinner. They had shaken hands, exchanged polite smiles. Everything seemed completely normal. But if this picture was real, then that moment had been nothing but a lie. I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it was just a coincidence, or maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I took a deep breath and flipped the photo over again, hoping I had misread the date. No, it was still there, written in my father's handwriting, March 12th, 2008. That was 8 years before I met my husband. I needed answers, but first I had to calm down. My thoughts were a mess, and I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I set the photo aside and stood up, pacing the room. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. Should I call my dad, or should I ask my husband first? What if this was something innocent, something I would regret accusing them of? I decided to wait until my husband got home. I would bring it up casually, as if I had just found the picture by accident. I didn't want him to think I was suspicious, not yet. The hours passed slowly. I tried to distract myself with housework, with emails, with TV. Nothing worked. My eyes kept drifting back to that photo on the table. Finally, I heard the front door open. My husband was home. I took a deep breath, forcing a smile as I walked toward him. He greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, completely unaware that I had spent the last few hours questioning everything. And then, in the most casual voice I could manage, I asked, "Hey, I found an old photo today. How do you know my father?" I watched his face carefully. At first, there was no reaction. But then, for just a fraction of a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Shock. He quickly masked it with a smile, but I had seen it. Something was wrong. For a brief moment, my husband just stood there, staring at me. His smile was still there, but it looked forced now, like he was trying too hard to seem normal. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice light, casual, too casual. I picked up the photo from the table and handed it to him. I was watching closely, searching for any sign of recognition, of hesitation, of anything. "This," I said, keeping my tone neutral, "it's you and my dad. But look at the date." He took the picture and studied it, his expression unreadable. I felt my stomach tighten. He was taking too long to react, like he was carefully choosing his next words. Finally, he let out a small chuckle and shrugged. "Oh, wow. Yeah. I totally forgot about this," he said, handing the picture back to me. "Your dad and I met years ago. It was nothing important." "Nothing important?" I frowned. He was acting like I had asked about the weather, like this wasn't a huge deal. "You never told me you knew him. I said, my voice sharper now. He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck as if he were suddenly tired. Babe, I didn't think it mattered. It was so long ago, and honestly, I barely remember it. I stared at him, my pulse quickening. He was lying. I didn't know how I knew it, but I did. The way he avoided my eyes, the way he tried to brush it off, it didn't feel right. My husband wasn't a forgetful person. He remembered everything, even the smallest details about our first date. And now, suddenly, he had no memory of how he knew my father. Something was definitely wrong. I took a slow breath. I didn't want to push too hard, not yet. If he was hiding something, I needed to be smart. All right, I said, forcing a smile. If you say so. He looked relieved, but I wasn't done. Because now I needed to hear what my father had to say. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. My husband's reaction to the photo had only made my suspicions stronger. He had lied to me, I was sure of it. But why? There was only one other person who could give me answers. I grabbed my phone and dialed my father's number. My fingers trembled slightly as I pressed call. Hey, sweetheart, my dad's voice came through, warm and familiar. How are you? I swallowed, trying to keep my tone light. Hey, Dad. I'm good. Actually, I found something yesterday that made me think of you. Oh, what is it? I hesitated, gripping the phone tighter. A photo. It's you and my husband. From 2008, there was silence, a long, heavy silence. I pulled the phone away from my ear and checked if the call had dropped. No, it was still connected. My dad was just not saying anything. Dad, I prompted. Where did you find that photo? His voice was different now. Lower, almost cautious. In an old album. Dad, how do you know my husband? Another pause. My heart was pounding. It's complicated. I felt a chill run down my spine. The exact same words my husband had used. Try me, I said, my voice firm now. Because both of you are acting like this is some big secret. What are you hiding? He let out a slow, tired sigh. Isabella, there are things from the past that don't need to be brought up. Trust me on this. Trust him? I felt my hands shaking. My own father was refusing to give me answers. Dad, I said, trying to control my frustration. I just want the truth. Another pause. Then finally he spoke. Meet me for coffee tomorrow. We need to talk in person. That was all he said before hanging up. I stared at my phone, my breath shaky. Whatever this was, it was big. And I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying my father's words, his hesitation, the eerie way he and my husband had said the exact same thing. It's complicated. What could possibly be so complicated that they both refused to talk about it over the phone? By the time morning came, I was exhausted but determined. I needed answers. I arrived at the small cafe where my father had asked to meet. He was already there, sitting at a corner table, a cup of coffee in front of him. He looked tense, his hands clasped together, his gaze distant. I sat down, not even bothering with small talk. Dad, tell me the truth, now. He let out a long sigh, running a hand down his face. Isabella, I never wanted you to find out like this. Find out what? My patience was gone. That my husband and my father have some kind of secret past. That I've been lied to by both of you. His jaw tightened. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. He looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw something I had never seen before guilt. Your husband and I, we knew each other a long time ago. Before you met him, before he even knew who you were. I felt my stomach drop. How? He hesitated. Then finally the words came. He worked for me. I blinked. Worked for you. He nodded. But not in the way you're thinking. Isabella, before I retired, I was involved in certain businesses. Let's just say I wasn't always the man you knew growing up. And your husband, he was part of that world too. The air around me felt heavy. My father was always a respected businessman, but I had never questioned what he did before he started his company. What kind of business? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He exhaled sharply. The kind where loyalty is everything. The kind where mistakes cost lives. I felt a cold wave of fear wash over me. Are you saying my husband was involved in something dangerous? Yes, he admitted. And when he left, when he got out of that life, there were consequences. I shook my head, trying to process everything. But why wouldn't he tell me? Why would he keep this from me? My father looked at me with sad eyes. Because he didn't want you to know who he used to be. He wanted a new life, Isabella, a clean slate. He never thought you'd find out. I sat there, frozen. My entire marriage, everything I thought I knew about my husband, was built on a past I had never even known existed. And now I had a choice to make. Did I confront him, demand the full truth? Or did I pretend I never found out? Because deep down, I knew some secrets were never meant to be uncovered. If you've watched this far, leave a like and subscribe to follow more.